Now, if you spend some time looking at watches or maybe collecting watches, you're going to notice that there are a lot of recurring themes. We're dealing with a small canvas here that you have on your wrist, and every single manufacturer has an intended purpose behind that piece to create something that's also going to be able to tell the time. With that being the confines of what you're creating, it creates a lot of challenges, and there's going to be a lot of repeating. That's happening over and over again. But in this world of repetitive designs, there are also some watches that decide to go a different direction and create something that's a little bit different or maybe entirely new. Today we're looking at a watch that is unlike most watches that you're going to find with the SAR Rescue-Timer. A watch that has a case and bracelet made out of steel and rubber, has a fully loomed up dial with this particular version, and is no question as rugged as they come when you're talking about a watch. Let's take a closer look at it. So before we jump into this video, I think many of you guys already know this, but I'm a huge fan of German watchmaking and what it has to offer. Baldassarre.com is a full authorized dealer of several German brands, including the likes of Nomos, Junghans, which I know many of you are familiar with, of course, because I speak on the channel quite a bit about them. You have Locker with their pilot watches, Sternglass offering some of the design components of Nomos and Junghans at a much more attainable price, and of course, Mühle Glashütte. So if you like this watch you're looking at here today, definitely check it out on Baldassarre.com. Starting with just a bit of history on the brand, Mühle Glashütte was founded in 1869 in Glashütte, Germany, and has been in constant operation under watchful eye of no less than 5 generations of family ownership, with the 6th generation already working for the brand. For much of its existence, Mühle was known for its instruments, developing motorcycle speedometers for companies like BMW, as well as having a strong reputation for marine chronometers. They didn't start tipping their toe into the water of mechanical watches until 1995, when one of Mülle's key shipyard clients called on the brand to develop mechanical wristwatches that could withstand the tough conditions aboard their ships, spawning a new brand focus. With that association in mind, in 2001, Mühle reached out to the German Maritime Search and Rescue Association and proposed the collaborative development of a new watch intended for the use of search and rescue missions on the turbulent waters of the North Sea. And in 2002, the original SAR Rescue-Timer was unveiled with a novel and distinctive case design, a ridiculous 1,000 meters of water resistance, and a matte black central dial surface complemented with an impressive helping of luminescent material. And for 20 years, despite a few limited editions, the robust SAR Rescue-Timer remained all but unchanged, a testament to the legitimacy of the original design. However, earlier this year, Mühle unveiled the SAR Rescue-Timer Lumen, a familiar SAR design with a fully loomed central dial surface that can basically brighten up an entire room. Digging into the watch itself, we're going to start by addressing one of the watch's most differentiating features, and that is the case design. When we look back to the original design requirements, they called for a low-profile construction that was unlikely to be caught up in lines or equipment in the dynamic maritime search and rescue environments. And in order to minimize this type of risk, Mühle opted for an overall rounded case architecture, complete with hooded lugs to protect the screwed lug bars within them. Being topped off with a prominent rubber bezel that absorbs shocks will also eliminate the risk of snagging and can be easily replaced if damaged. And just to speak as someone who has spent some significant time with these watches, that rubber is tough and is not going to share wear as easily as you might think. It certainly is not indestructible, but it simply works. In terms of finishing, the central case is finely blasted, resulting in a subdued appearance that won't create distracting reflections. The signed screw-down crown is nestled into a sculpted guard at the 4 o'clock position, and combined with the screw-down caseback, helps enable this watch's impressive 1,000 meters of water resistance. At 42 millimeters in diameter and around 48.8 millimeters with the lug-to-lug, I would say the SAR Rescue-Timer series wears smaller than expected, though with an overall wearing experience that is different than pretty much anything else that I have ever tried. The sculpted case top, rubber bezel, and hooded lugs all flow neatly into the bracelet, which has its own rubber-covered center links, exemplifying a neatly integrated and unique design concept. On the wrist, and especially with the help of what is a truly excellent bracelet, the wearing experience is substantial but comfortable. The clasp is one area that lags behind the rest of what is being presented with this bracelet. However, it still does the job and features micro adjustment points and a diver extension. Looking down at this watch, you really feel like you have an instrument on your wrist just as much as a watch itself. One note is that the height is a little thicker for a time-only watch at 13.1 millimeters, but it's important to also note that a great deal of that height comes from a result of a 4 millimeter thick crystal made of sapphire, utilized here in helping to achieve water resistance rating while also providing a clear view of the striking lume dial lurking underneath. Where the original variant relied on large lume printed markers on a black surface, this new Lumen variant takes the nighttime legibility argument to an entirely different level, with a dial coated with superluminova and paired with blacked out markers and skeletonized hands. And while the fully lume dial had something of a moment back in the 1980s and 90s with models like the Tag Heuer Night Diver and a slew of citizen divers, this type of dial execution is fairly rare these days, though it makes a ton of sense considering the nighttime out at sea use case inherent in this design. In terms of dial layout, the Lumen follows the original design with huge triangular markers at 12, 3, 6, and 9, with smaller rectangular and simple minute markings in between. To assist in orientation, the 12 o'clock triangle is flipped compared to the others and complete with 2 small dots, a small nod to German Flieger watches from decades past. Mühle's signature is just below with 100 ATM printed at the 6 o'clock to advertise the extreme water resistance present here. The matte black dial printing itself is worthy of note, as it does have some thick application as to block out the luminescent material. This gives the printed markers somewhat of a 3-dimensional feel and even some texture when viewed underneath the macro lens. But essentially how this is going to be illuminated is almost in reverse. Everything from blocking out the lume dial surface as well as skeletonizing those hands at the center. Another useful feature is the execution of a date window, which rests at the 4 o'clock position beneath a circular cyclops that, unlike the norm, is located under the crystal. This offers a slight magnification to improve legibility, and like every feature showcased so far, has utility and real-world application in mind. So the design of this piece is certainly going to be the main talking point. But the work Mühle does with its movements can't be overlooked either. Flipping the Rescue-Timer over, we have a closed screw-down caseback with simple engravings, while also providing protection for the modified Sellita SW200 inside. One of the areas where Mühle really separates itself from other German watch brands is with the careful attention paid to their calibers. This SW200 features a nicely machine finished rotor, which also includes hollowed out points, a branded engraving, and perlaged finishing beneath the balance. Yet there is a proprietary element to this movement with the Woodpecker neck regulator that was patented by Mühle in 2003. If you're not familiar, this is the reinterpreted design by Mühle from the more popular swan neck design, providing similar sensitive adjustment while assisting in resisting against shock with a more secure balance assembly. Speaking anecdotally to these watches, they're typically going to be running between 1 to 6 seconds a day. I find there's pretty good regulation in Mühle's timepieces. And in terms of general specifications, we're looking at 28,800 vibrations per hour, 4 hertz. It does feature hacking and hand winding. Hacking stop in the second hand when you pull out the crown to the farthest position. It has a power reserve of 38 hours. So as I've gotten deeper into this world of watches, I've come to appreciate ones that are created with function in mind. And this is a watch that really epitomizes that idea, because looking at it, honestly, it's just really weird. It does not look like anything you've ever seen before in a lot of cases. And that's not done by accident, because this watch was developed for a certain type of individual as well as mission in mind. Around pretty much every single corner, there's something strange that's going to be looking back at you. The use of a rubber bezel, I've never seen that before. These large blasted lug hoods that extend out that still can technically accept a traditional strap inside, but it is going to be a bit more limiting. And specifications that are perhaps over the top for what I would say most people are going to require. This is a watch that's just simply built like a tank and has its own intended purpose. Some might say it's ugly, and I could totally get those people, if we're being honest, because this is certainly not gonna be a watch for everybody. But at the end of the day, when we're talking about the same type of watches and watches that are so apart from what their original intended purpose was, it's always refreshing for me to look at a watch that is just completely that. This is simply put a tool watch and is not trying to disguise itself as anything else. And that's the type of authenticity that I can applaud anytime, because most people are anything but that nowadays. So I don't really have much else to say about this watch other than the fact that this is just the epitome of what a tool watch is from Germany, and one that I think is pretty cool in the way it's executed. All right, guys, well, I'd love to see your comments down below. What do you think of this particular watch? Do you love it, or are you in the favor of maybe burning it at the stake? I think those are probably the two positions people will have with this one. I can already foresee it, but I think it's pretty interesting. If you did enjoy the video, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and also hit the bell icon. Really would appreciate that. It does help out the channel as well. And also check out TeddyBaldassarre.com if you want to see this SAR Rescue-Timer as well as many other brands, 30 other brands, full authorized dealer, quick and fast fulfillment, dedicated customer support. Also offer a full factory warranty for all the products that we carry. So if anything goes wrong, you're completely covered. But guys, thank you again so much for watching. Be well, and I will see you all very soon.